All right, guys, welcome back to the stream. Welcome if you are new. Thank you guys so much for being here with me today. Thank you for waiting patiently for the stream to actually start. We are talking about Final Fantasy today. There is a new report that has come out, and it maybe is a little bit concerning, but maybe not. It really depends on which way you look at it. But we have actually a couple of things regarding Final Fantasy to go over and discuss here today. So we're going to get into that momentarily. I'm going to just give it a couple of minutes here, let more people file in, see what's going on in the chat. New Soul 9, thank you for the super chat, man. You're saying, MBG, would you do a playthrough of Final Fantasy 16? Just curious. Well, I think that's a good question. I am very excited for Final Fantasy 16. I did pre-order it, and I think it's funny that as soon as I pre-order Final Fantasy 16, we get this report. Um, so yeah, that happened. But would I do a playthrough of it? Probably not a full playthrough. The reason being is, as far as I understand, Final Fantasy 16 is going to be a very large game, a longer game. I think just to beat like the main story, it's going to take between 25 and 30 hours. And I'm planning on doing everything there is to do in Final Fantasy 16. Now, you say a playthrough. While I'm not up to doing a full playthrough, would I do a stream playing it, playing certain parts of it? Yeah, probably. I could see myself doing that. That might be something we do. You're saying 35 hours for the main story? Yeah, that actually sounds right. It's a JRPG, so, it's going to have a lot of content there. But I'm 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 not necessarily a playthrough channel. I'm not necessarily a let's play channel, as you guys know. But I am open to doing some, gameplay streams occasionally when I feel it's worth doing so, when it feels relevant enough. So for a game like Final Fantasy 16, yeah, we might end up doing something like that. I will say this though, when it comes to playing games at launch, I don't know that I'm ever going to do a first time playthrough on a live stream. I've done this a couple of times, and I got to be completely honest, I've never really enjoyed it. I just simply can't focus on the new experience at hand while I'm streaming it. Some people I know are able to do that. I don't know how they're able to do it, but like I think the last time I did a stream for gameplay was for God of War Ragnarok, and I think I streamed it for maybe an hour and a half, and it just was uncomfortable because I'm trying to like focus on the game and just be immersed in it, but I know that there's a chat here and there's people watching. What I have discovered is that if I get once I get comfortable with the game, once I get familiar with the game, it would be much easier for me to actually stream myself playing it. So for a game like Final Fantasy 16, it already feels pretty daunting. Final Fantasy 16 is a game that I'm a little bit intimidated by, frankly, but very much excited about. So I imagine, it's going to take me a couple of hours or more to really get acquainted with it and get a feel for it. But once I'm confident in it, I mean, I don't know. I might do a scenario where I do my first playthrough, and then after my first playthrough, maybe I'll do like you know, a gameplay stream or something like that. But but yeah, with that being said, guys, I am going to dive into the first topic. We have a report. This is coming from comicbook.com, and the title says Final Fantasy 16 rumor warns of panic at Square Enix. According to a new rumor, there is some panic at Square Enix in regards to Final Fantasy 16. More specifically, Square Enix, according to this rumor, are slightly panicking about the pre order numbers of the game, which are supposedly lower than Final Fantasy 15's pre order numbers. The report comes the way of industry insider Imran Khan, a source that has proven both reliable and unreliable in the past. According to Khan, the forecast takes into account the fewer platforms. According to this, Imran Khan relays word of Final Fantasy VII's sales, noting that while the remake sold quite good at first, its sales slowed down quicker than Square Enix had forecasted. I bring this up because I had heard recently that Square Enix is panicking slightly over Final Fantasy XVI's pre-order numbers, which are tracking behind Final Fantasy XV, even accounting for the lesser number of launching platforms. Granted, those are pre-order numbers and they're only useful to gauge guaranteed day one sales versus potential day one sales, so the actual number could blow everyone away. But with the current tracking, I wonder if they want to remind people the next chapter of Final Fantasy VII's remake trilogy exists and give it more marketing time than they had planned. The initial sales of Remake were quite good, but it slowed down faster than Square Enix seemed to expect, so I imagine they really want Rebirth to sell as well as possible. Well, of course they do, but I imagine they're really, really hoping for an uptick in sales. Is any of this true? Who knows? That said, even if this doesn't mean the game, even if it is, this doesn't mean the game is in trouble. Pre-order numbers can be useful for gauging day one sales, but not much else. So far, Final Fantasy XVI looks poised to be a major success for Square Enix. More importantly, the game looks and sounds great, which is all that truly matters to fans. So this is the report we're getting from Imran Khan. Again, as the article states, he has been correct about things in the past. He has been incorrect about things in the past. But what I do know is that this report is beginning to make the rounds, and it's sparked quite the discussion. And from my perspective, I look at Square Enix, and something that I've noticed with Square Enix many times in the past is that for some reason, it seems like Square Enix is never satisfied with any sales that they get for any game. It seems like Square Enix is in a perpetual state of disappointment and feeling like every game that they produce is underperforming by some metric to a certain extent. And it's actually kind of gotten to a point where it's somewhat of a meme with Square Enix because it's like, I mean, all the reports we get from them are them pretty much saying, like, yeah, it didn't hit our targets. It didn't really sell as well as we hoped it would or as well as we thought it would. And you take that into account. You take into account the fact that Final Fantasy 16 is a PlayStation 5 exclusive. Final Fantasy 16 does not have the the added sales bonus, I guess you could say, of releasing as a multi-platform title, to whereas Final Fantasy 15 was a multi-platform title. Now, it's worth noting the article points out that according to Imran Khan, Square Enix has taken this into account, and even with that taken into account, they are feeling like it's just not really looking as good as they thought it would be. Now, the one thing I want to point out here is the terminology Imran Khan uses. He says slightly panicking. Um, I put that in quotes in the title because I do think that's relevant. I have seen some people reporting on this and some websites reporting on this, straight up saying that Square Enix is panicked over Final Fantasy 16. I mean, look, are they in full blown panic mode? I would hope not. I would think that would be pretty ridiculous simply because it's like, look, Final Fantasy 16, as most people have seen for themselves, looks like a very good game. We are also in a day and age where it seems to me like people are pre-ordering less and less. And the reason being is because they don't really feel the need to. If you're buying your game digitally and there's no like, you know, big pre-order bonus that's really worth having, then why would you pre-order the game? You just probably buy it the night before, or the day of, or maybe a couple days after. Um, but it is something that you do have to question, right? Like the question is going to arise: is Final Fantasy 16 in trouble? No, I think it's safe to say that Final Fantasy 16 will likely be a success. Now, will it be a success in the eyes of Square Enix? Maybe, maybe not. I do think that a game like Final Fantasy 16, based off of everything I've seen, it has the chance to win a lot of people over. I think if the game reviews very well, like if the game reviews in the low 90s, which I'm not saying it's going to, but a lot of people are thinking that's where it's headed. If that's where it ends up reviewing, that could convince a lot of people to say, you know what, I think I'm actually going to go pick this game up. It sounds like it'll be worth it. A lot of people do like to do that. They do like to wait until the reviews come out. Um, there is something to be said for the fact that the PlayStation 5's install base, again, the console this game is exclusive to, it is not as large as what it would be if Final Fantasy 16 was releasing a year from now, 2 years from now. It has about 38 million PlayStation 5s to work with. Now, by the time Final Fantasy 16 comes out, that number will likely be closer to 40 million units, and that's a healthy install base. You know, selling a game to an install base of 40 million is pretty good. Um, if this game were to sell 10 million copies, I think almost everybody would be able to look at that and say that's a massive success. That would be a massive success on this platform. So you basically just have to ask yourself, does Square Enix have unrealistic expectations sales wise? Well, we don't know what their metrics are, but if they're slightly panicking as it's being reported, then you have to assume that it's one of two things. It's either their metrics are too high and they need to readjust that, or the game actually simply is not appealing enough and there really are not enough pre-orders. Unless we get like hard data coming from Square Enix, we're not really going to know, unfortunately. But my gut instinct tells me that Final Fantasy 16 is going to be just fine. And if Square Enix really is panicking slightly internally, I feel like that's probably due to them just their expectations just being too high. And I base that, as I said, on Square Enix's past, where it just seems like every time we hear like, oh, this game sold this amount, and everybody kind of looks around at each other and they say, oh, that actually sounds pretty good. Meanwhile, Square Enix is like, that's not good. That's a failure. It's like, oh, okay, you know. Um, Pragmatic Hat, you're saying MBG, it's pronounced Enix, not Enix. Chad, is this true? Am I saying Square Enix wrong? Is it not Enix? Is it Enix? Because I've been saying it that way forever. Square Enix. Square Enix. Square Enix. Maybe you're right, but maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe you can say it either way. You can say Square Enix, you can say Square Enix, you say Squeenix, Nix, whatever floats your boat, right? Pragmatic Cat, you're saying that's how the developers pronounce it. Okay. All right. I guess, yeah, if that's how the developers are pronouncing it, then I guess that's how it's pronounced, Square Enix. I'll try to say it that way. I will admit saying Square Enix feels better. It feels better than saying Enix. Enix, it sounds like too enunciated, you know? Like Square Enix. Square Enix. Whereas Square Enix, it just kind of flows. It flows smoother. Square Enix. Square Enix. Enix. Okay, moving on from that. Thank you, Pragmatica. Severin Evans, you're saying two things. First, being in the economic situation it's currently isn't good. Second, this shows why exclusivity can sometimes hurt more than help. Proof of it here. Well, yeah. So the first part of your super chat, you mentioned, how the economy is right now. Yes, there's there's no denying that things are not ideal, and a lot of people are gonna really think twice about whether or not they want to spend $70 on a newly released game, whether that's a PlayStation exclusive or not. $70 is a lot of money, and you know, most people, if I had to guess, see, this is why I'm saying most people, I think, are more inclined to hold on to that $70 and just wait for the game to launch to then buy it. If anything, just to make sure that it doesn't bomb critically. I really do think that most people are likely doing that. Even people who know for a fact they're going to buy this game and play it still haven't pre ordered it. In fact, for me, a lot of times I don't pre order games. Me pre ordering Final Fantasy 16 is actually somewhat abnormal for me because when I go get my games, I usually just, the day it comes out, I usually just go out and pick it up at the store. You know, like, so, and most of these games are games like I'm absolutely, yes, I'm there day one. I'm not on the fence. So the fact that that's a thing that I've done many times, I know for a fact millions of other people probably do that too. But just generally speaking, I think a lot of people are just kind of probably waiting, you know. And we have Hellbound 1981 coming in, gifting 5 memberships. Thank you so much, Hellbound. Really appreciate that, man. Let's get some W's in the chat for Hellbound. Hellbound always putting in some good work for the channel as well.
You're breathtaking.
Shout out to you, man.
You're all
Thank you for the 5 membership gifts. Keeping it growing. Keeping this community growing. Severin Evans, the second part of your super chat, you're saying that this is proof that exclusivity can hurt games sometimes more than it can help them. Well, here's something interesting that we have to acknowledge. Something I didn't mention is the fact that Final Fantasy is expected to sell very well in Japan specifically. I mean, it's expected to sell very well generally, but especially in Japan. And unfortunately for both Sony and Square Enix, PS5 software has not been doing well in Japan. I think it's been improving slightly, but generally speaking, it's doing poor. It's not ideal. It's far from ideal. This is something that quite a few people have been bringing up, where if part of Square Enix, if part of their expectation and even part of Sony's expectation is, hey, Final Fantasy 16 is going to be a big seller in Japan, and then it turns out that it's not. People aren't pre-ordering this game in Japan, and it's looking like it might not sell nearly as well as you thought in Japan. I mean, you do have to wonder, and I have seen people bring this up, you do have to wonder, does this have to do with some of the gameplay changes that the development team decided to go for? I do also want to say that, yeah, it is true that there are times exclusivity can hurt a game. Absolutely. I think the idea is that when Square Enix, when they sign a deal with Sony and Sony pays them money up front, I think the expectation is we get this money now from Sony, which is good. It's just more money. Probably a good chunk of change, if I had to guess, for an exclusivity deal for a game as big as Final Fantasy 16. They get that up front, but they probably have a certain confidence where it's like, well, hey, this game's probably going to sell really good on top of that. So it's kind of like a win-win situation, kind of like you get your cake and you get to eat it too type situation, where we get the money up front from Sony and this game's probably going to sell incredibly well. So, hey, and maybe now Square Enix is potentially seeing pre-order wise, if this report is even true, which again, we cannot verify we can't verify whether or not this report is actually truthful or bad info. The person who's reporting it has a 50-50 track record. It could be a situation where Square Enix took the money from Sony, also expecting massive amounts of sales, and now they're finding out that, well, it might not sell as well as you thought. And so in the end, they thought that maybe what something that would have been much more profitable is just going to end up being slightly profitable, or maybe I don't know. I think Final Fantasy 16 will be profitable, but I don't think it's gonna. I mean, it would be quite surprising if it flopped or failed to break even. And Rebel Warrior, we have Rebel Warrior becoming a channel member. Shout out to you, man. Thank you for joining, and thank you for choosing to support my content here and support me as a creator month over month. I really appreciate that, dude. Give you a little Arnold laugh for that. Thank you, Rebel Warrior. Yeah, let's get some W's in the chat for Rebel Warrior. So, Severin, I think you're correct to a certain degree here. It'll be difficult to determine if exclusivity hurts Final Fantasy 16 until the game's out and we start to get some data, hopefully, or if Square Enix says anything about it. Pragmatic Cat, you're saying maybe the new audience with the action focus doesn't pre-order. That's an interesting thought. It could be that. Maybe there are a lot of new Final Fantasy fans or people who are excited for Final Fantasy 16, like myself. But rather than pre-ordering, they don't. They just don't pre-order games. That could be a possibility. I do think that there are going to be new people. I think it's obvious that decide to buy Final Fantasy 16. You do have to wonder if Square Enix and the development team, if they're starting to think like, uh-oh, did we really make a mistake? Letting them turn Final Fantasy into a full-blown action game, action RPG. I don't think it's a mistake. I think when the reviews come out, they're probably going to be really good. They're probably going to be really good, and I think that a lot of people are going to base their decision on buying this game on how this game reviews. I get that feeling. I mean, Final Fantasy, the name alone holds a lot of weight, but correct me if I'm wrong about this, because I wasn't paying too much attention at the time. Wasn't Final Fantasy 15 looked at as like a not good game? Like, didn't a lot of people kind of come out and be like, yeah, Final Fantasy 15 was pretty underwhelming. I'm not entirely sure. I don't recall the conversation around Final Fantasy 15 being like, this game is amazing and this is awesome and like this is what we've been waiting for. I remember it being very divisive, and a lot of people were like, I mean, I know people enjoyed it. I'm seeing in the chat right now, a lot of you guys are saying, generally speaking, it was considered pretty bad. Saying at launch it was horrible. Somebody saying it was mid. It's sold, and that's crazy. It still sold over 10 million. I think that number was reported in 2022. I think. Well, that's the thing. You know what is Final Fantasy 15's Metacritic? Let me check here. So on PlayStation 4, it's got an 81 on Metacritic. So that's actually not that bad. But for a mainline Final Fantasy game, I guess maybe. Well, okay. Final Fantasy 15 shipped on everything, and it reviewed at an 81 on Metacritic. I don't know, do you guys think am I off the mark for assuming that Final Fantasy 16 is going to review higher than an 81 on Metacritic? It just seems to me like almost everybody is thoroughly impressed with what they've seen of Final Fantasy 16, and the previews were very, very positive. See somebody saying an 88. Like, if Final Fantasy 16 lands at a 91, that'll be 10 points higher than Final Fantasy 15, and I think that could do. I think that could do big things for the game sales wise. but to get a 91 on Metacritic is very hard. So Final Fantasy 15 sold 10 million. You know, I just, the one piece of information that I wish we could have right now, because it would be so helpful, is what are Square Enix's actual expectations? Because the report, or where this is coming from, they're claiming that Square Enix is slightly panicked, even taking into account that this is an exclusive. So you have to want, like, I really do genuinely wonder, like, then what are your expectations? Like, how many copies, how many pre-orders are you expecting there to be for a game that's $70 on a console that has about 38 million units out there, 38 million install base? I really wonder, like, what would you guys, if you guys had to guess, what would you say a reasonable number of like pre-orders right now would be for something like Final Fantasy 16 on PS5? If I had to guess, I mean, I would say like 1.5 million, maybe. I think that would be pretty good, like 2 million. Keep in mind, maybe 2 million's pushing it. 1.5 million, you think that's too high? Well, because we have to take into account pre-orders do not indicate day one sales, as in like these are all the people who are gonna buy Final Fantasy 16 day one. It just indicates these are the people who have already put down their money to get it day one. You guys, I see a lot of numbers floating around. 300K, 600. Yeah, maybe I'm way off the mark. I don't know what. I guess it's just because, like, I think about some of Sony's games, right? Like, some of Sony's games, they sell like 3 million in 3 days. I mean, I don't think it would be shocking to think that 1 million of those were day one pre-orders. Maybe though. Maybe that is maybe I am way off the mark. 800,000. Dan, you're saying Sony's games are not the norm. That's a good point as well. That's a good point. So most people seem to be under the impression that it's less than a million pre-orders. You're saying pre-orders over 1 million are super rare. That's interesting. I guess the more I think about it, that actually makes a lot of sense. Because again, those are people who are giving you money in advance before the game's even out. So, yeah, my expectation for how many people would be willing to do that is probably way too high. I wonder, that's what it really makes me wonder, like, what number? Like, is Square Enix looking at, like, dude, like, less than 300,000 people have this game pre-ordered? Like, I feel like if it was, like, less than 300,000 people pre-ordered this game, I'd be a little bit panicked. I'd feel slightly panicked. I'd be like, that's scary. Like, this is a game. I think this is a game that's expected to sell certainly more than 5 million units. Certainly more than 5 million units. So I don't, maybe the number Square Enix, now I'm going to be all hung up on that. Maybe the number Square Enix is looking for is somewhere around between 800, or not, somewhere between 600 and 800,000, like the high end. Because the game, yeah, you're right. They are marketing the hell out of this game. Maybe it's like well below that. How would it sell 5 million? It's only PS5. Well, keep in mind, I don't mean 5 million out of the gate. I mean, like, within the first year, I could see it selling more than 5 million. I know it's a PS5 exclusive, but I don't know, man. Am I overestimating the reach that Final Fantasy has? Am I overestimating that reach? Because I've always thought that Final Fantasy is like it's a big game. Like, it's a well-known series that's going to do big numbers. I see somebody saying 5 to 10 million. Shelly, Okay, you're saying Ragnarok hasn't even hit 10 million on PS5 only. Okay. You know what? Yeah, I think that might be what's messing me up. I keep thinking I I don't know, I keep comparing it to Sony's games, but pretty much all the big hitters underneath Sony were not PS5 only. Michael, you're saying, or Michael Wozniak, I think is how you pronounce that. You're saying, I always pre-order the day before I'm a digital PS5 owner. Well, there you go. That's a prime example. That's a prime example. I mean, I'm assuming, Michael, that you're planning on getting Final Fantasy 16. And that is a prime example of somebody who is fully planning on buying this game, paying full price for it, being there day one, but you're waiting till the night before. You're saying even Final Fantasy 7 Remake sold 5 million in its first year. Final Fantasy 16 isn't going to do that, being a PS5 exclusive. Okay, yeah, maybe I'm off the mark here. Maybe I'm off the mark here. Interesting. You know, it does make you wonder how much pressure, like if Final Fantasy 16 can't do the type of heavy lifting for Square Enix that they expected it to, it does make you wonder how much pressure is this now going to put on Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. Sewell, you're saying I canceled my 16 pre-orders, collector's edition and DX after the press release BS regarding turn-based games / the JRPG term equals bad. It's okay. If Final Fantasy wants to divide its fans and cater to normies, then I'll just not play it. Wow. That's interesting. I mean, I get it, I get it. It I it is difficult for me to gauge how much of a like how impactful, I guess the way to describe it. It's difficult for me to gauge how impactful the changes that they're making to Final Fantasy 16 are to long-term, like hardcore Final Fantasy fans, cuz that's, I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit of a normie here, but I'm not that. I'm not against turn-based. Um I'm not against turn-based games at all, actually, or JRPGs. I just rarely ever play games like that. I do think that there are fans like yourself, Sewell, that yeah, they're opting out this time. They're like, look, a lot of the things that you're choosing to do with this series that I have a specific expectation for, you're not doing it. And therefore, I'm out. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think any of us can really know. I think it's going to be interesting to see what the development team says about this game shortly after launch. What Square Enix, sorry, might end up saying about this game after launch. Sewell, everybody in the chat is focused on the fact that you use the term normies. Normies. I have to admit, I don't think I've heard that term in a long time. Normies. MBG, if you look at PSN, Final Fantasy 16 is the second most pre-ordered game. Huh. See, that doesn't surprise me. What's number one? Do a poll, MBG. Let's see who's buying Final Fantasy 16. I think if I'm going to do a poll, I'm going to save it for not to do on stream, but to do it on my channel in general. And I'll do it closer to the launch. Spider-Man. Oh, yeah. Yeah, true. I forgot. Pre-orders are up for Spider-Man now. Right? Pretty sure you can pre-order Spider-Man. Saying Diablo 4. Can you pre-order Spider-Man yet? That I haven't looked into. Because I don't pre-order games that early. I guess yeah, they don't even have a release date for it. So I'm going to say that you probably can't pre-order Spider-Man yet. Yeah, Diablo 4 is number one. That makes sense. Yeah, Diablo is huge. And it's for the early access. Well, that'll do it. I appreciate the super chat, Sewell. And you come back with another $2 super chat saying, "Normies! I'm tired of these normies. They're ruining my games." I appreciate it. Brandon, you're saying Final Fantasy VII Remake sold 15 million so far because it's PS4 and PS5. Final Fantasy 16 won't sell close to that. PS5 is still way too little consoles out there. Yeah, it's interesting because I didn't consider that. Like, I really just didn't put much thought into it. I didn't think to myself that there's a limited install base that they're going to have to work with Final Fantasy 16 compared to Final Fantasy 7 Remake. And I don't know, man. It's even more interesting when we consider the fact that I recently just covered a piece of news where I think it was Yoshi P, where he said that they were originally going to release Final Fantasy 16 on PS4, but the reason why they chose not to was because development would have taken like another year or two, and they didn't want to wait that long to release the game. I think Final Fantasy 16 is a game that I think it'll do well out of the gate, but I think it's a game that can have some legs. That can have a long tail. I do think that. I could see Final Fantasy 16 selling well throughout the entire life cycle of the PlayStation 5. I mean, obviously it'll slow down year over year, at least that's the assumption and the expectation. But it's one of these bigger games that I don't know. I could see people all throughout 2024 picking up PS5s and being like, you know what? Yeah, I think I'll pick up Final Fantasy 16, even in 2025. Have you seen what Yoshi P said about sales? They expect it to have legs. I didn't actually specifically see like that quote, but that doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me. Because why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't it? That's what I'm saying, especially if the game reviews well. If the game reviews really well and it just has a lot of positive buzz around it, that'll help give it a long tail. Let me see here. So I appreciate that super chat, Brandon. New Soul 9, you're saying, I want to also mention Square's reputation is not that good when it comes to their games. That can be another factor. That's my guess, though. Yeah, I will agree that Square doesn't have the best reputation. I don't think they have the worst reputation. I think they're kind of in the middle. Like, they clearly make some dumb decisions and bad decisions with some of their games and just some of their ways that they like do business, where like they're still heavily into the NFT stuff and whatnot. Saying 15 did some damage. Yeah, they're, we look at just more recently something like Forspoken, like that didn't help Square. It didn't. You got to give them credit for trying, and I'll always give any video game publisher credit for you tried a new AAA IP, just it didn't work out as well as you hoped it would, and that sucks. Nobody wants to see that. But yeah, I do think Square has a very back and forth type of reputation, and I do feel with Final Fantasy 16 specifically, I don't know that this game is. I think this game really can only help their reputation. That's my assumption. Like, I don't think it could necessarily do any damage. You're saying they're bipolar. Yeah, maybe that's a way. That's one way to describe Square. Inconsistent. That's another good way to describe it. A more accurate way, I would say. They said Guardians of the Galaxy was a failure. They need a reality check. Yeah, that was bizarre. I played Guardians of the Galaxy. That was a very good game. I mean, the gameplay could have been fleshed out a little bit more, but it was a solid game. Single player experience, good story, pretty fun gameplay. I enjoyed it, and it is disappointing. And it's a Marvel game, like that's what's weird to me is you would have thought that just the fact that it was a Marvel game, um surely it sold well enough to warrant a sequel, but according to Square, no. You're saying its combat was a bit underwhelming? Yeah, I agree. The combat was too repetitive. It was simple and it felt fine to play, but in my opinion, it was too repetitive. And that's why I was like hoping they would have done a sequel because if they did a sequel, they would have been able to really flesh out like more interesting things they could do combat wise, to make it a little bit more engaging in that way. But I enjoy the overall package and experience was good. So I appreciate that, new Soul 9. Space D, you're saying, MBG, are we going to ignore Final Fantasy 7 Remake performance? 5+ million copies with 2 release versions in 3 years. The most beloved Final Fantasy game ever. That's not a good sign. Well, to be honest, I don't know. I don't know what the numbers are for Final Fantasy 7 Remake. I say this because, I mean, Brandon, Tampa fan, is saying it sold 15 million across PS4 and PS5. You're saying it only did 5 million plus. I'm not sure. I don't follow Square Enix as closely as I follow um Sony. Somebody in the chat is saying, "Bro, Final Fantasy 7 Remake sold 5 million in 4 months?" Okay. And then somebody's saying 15 million with the OG version. And we have Corey Landega coming in again. Dude, Corey, an absolute legend on the channel. Doing it again, man. Doing it again. Let's get some W's in the chat for Corey. Legendary Landega dropping another 20 bomb on us today. Dropping another 20 bomb on us. Out of nowhere. Thank you so much, man. We had 5 memberships gifted by Hellbound 1981. And then we had Rebel Warrior become a member. And now Corey drops 20 membership gifts. Crushing our goal for the day once again, man. Once again. The goal was set to 25. We're at 26. Sincerely appreciate that, Corey. Corey is a crazy man out here. I was calling him the god of memberships, but we settled on we'll keep the nickname at Legendary Landega. But man, he's been doing a lot of work for this community here. So let's get some let's get some thank yous in the chat for Corey because he's been gifting memberships like crazy, man. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. The support is everything, dude. Oh, I actually forgot to mention this, and I'll mention it now. I did. You're saying I'm not Landega. Wait, hold on. Am I saying your name wrong? Corey, have I been saying your last name wrong this whole time? Because I'm gonna feel. I have been. Okay, Corey. I'm so sorry, man. That's wild. I'm sorry you've had to sit through this for what is weeks, possibly months now, hearing me mispronounce your last name. Please tell me what is it Landiga? Landiga. Am I saying it correctly there? I know, dude, I know. MBG and his pronunciations, man. It is my weakness. Landiga. Okay, dude, I'm sorry, man. I feel so bad now. You know what? I can't say I'm surprised. I feel bad, but I can't say I'm surprised. It's always like this with me. I don't know why my brain works that way. Like when I read certain names or certain words, it just my brain, once it's already decided how it's going to pronounce it. Landiga. Legendary Landiga. Oh, man. Okay, so I'm going to give you another apology in advance, Corey. There's a decent chance that in the future I may still, at certain times, accidentally say Landiga because I've been saying it for so long. I have to retrain my brain now. Landiga. Corey Landiga. Corey Legendary Landiga. MBG, do you have Hispanic heritage? As far as I'm aware, I do not. Starscream, I did get your super chat. I'm pretty sure. I'm making my way down. So no worries. And thank you again, Corey. And I'm glad we could clear this up. It took long enough. It took long enough. MBG, I'm slightly bilingual. You know how embarrassing it is to write an email sometimes using the European/French spelling of words. Oh man. You guys are trying to figure out what I have in me. Somebody's saying I have a little bit of French in me. Maybe I do. Je m'appelle Jean-Luc. I think I just said my name is John. I think that's what I said. I don't know. Saying MBG definitely Latino, dude. As far as I'm aware, no, I'm not. I'm gonna have to look into this. But I appreciate it, Corey. Thank you so much for that 20 membership gift. MBG is Italian. Yeah, I have a lot of Italian in me. I think I have Italian in me. I'm German. I'm English. I think I have a bit of Cherokee Indian in me as well, which is quite surprising, I think. Venom, you're saying you look like you have Native American heritage. Yeah, I think it's Cherokee. Which is so crazy to think. I gotta look into this. Yeah, good timing, Venom. Good timing. Can you do an Italian impression? I would prefer not to. All right, before we get way too off track here, all right, we sorted something very important out that took longer than it should have. Let me see. So yeah, Space D, getting back to your super chat, it seems to me like a lot of people are confirming that, assuming the chat's correct, they're saying that Final Fantasy VII Remake sold 5 million in its first 4 months. But we have this report here. It is worth noting, and this is a good time to bring it up. In the I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that, all right? People trying to get me to say Mario quotes now. Throw me all off track. Here. Corey Landiga, you're saying you're Ukrainian, Italian, English, Irish, Canadian. Dude, that's a lot, man. That's a lot. That's an interesting mix there. Jay Shaka, you're saying it's at 15.1 million so far. Yeah, that's the second time I've seen somebody floating around the 15 million. So somebody said that 15 million for Final Fantasy VII is for the original. Is that true? Or is that just because like 15 million? Yeah, that because I was gonna say that has to be for the original. 15 million for Final Fantasy VII Remake would be insane. That would truly be insane for remake. Did we ever get confirmation whether or not Final Fantasy VII Remake sold 10 million units? Because I think that sounds reasonable. If it could sell 5 million in its first 4 months, I could see it eventually getting to 10. I'm just waiting to see. You're saying they stopped counting after 5 million. Well, okay. So the article that I read from, it says that the the sales for Final Fantasy VII Remake were very strong out of the gate, but then they seemingly slowed down quite a bit after that. So I do have to wonder if it never did hit the 10 million mark. Maybe it's sitting at like 7, 8 million, which I think is still good. That's still really good, especially for a game that's, exclusive, at least to a console. Yeah, I think it is safe to say. I think it's safe to say that Final Fantasy 16 is not going to do numbers as good as Final Fantasy 7 Remake. I think it would be quite surprising if it did, and I don't think anybody, I don't think even Square Enix is expecting that. Oh, and I'm gonna update this here before I forget. So I appreciate the super chat, Space D. Severin Evans again. You're saying, just to be fair, MBG, after Forspoken, Square has dropped in interest. Final Fantasy VII Remake isn't doing as well as they hoped either. It's a pattern at this point, right? It it could be. It could be, man. I mean, a lot of the conversation around Square as a publisher, it is very mixed. It is very inconsistent, as we talked about. And it does seem like there is a tremendous amount of pressure on games like Final Fantasy 7. Or I almost said Final Fantasy 7 16. Final Fantasy 16 and Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. I don't know what the future of Square Enix looks like, but I can tell you that I am a gamer that has never really had much interest at all in Square Enix. And it really is only until just recently that I very much became interested in them, and that was thanks to Final Fantasy VII Remake, and that's why I'm here day one for Final Fantasy. I know a lot of people think I'm getting Final Fantasy 16 day one because it's exclusive to PS5. That's not why. Don't get me wrong; it happens to line up well with my channel because it's like we talk PlayStation here. But no, if Final Fantasy 16 was a multi-plat game, I'd still be buying it day one because it it just looks really good. And after experiencing 7 Remake, I'm like, yeah, I'm there. I'm there. Everything I've heard about this game sounds good to me. But I saw somebody mention that Final Fantasy 14 is a huge success for them. That is true. Final Fantasy 14 is it is a hugely, wildly successful live service game. It's one of those types of live service success stories that are rare, and Square has one. But it's interesting that it's still Final Fantasy, you know? Like I'm not that familiar with Square's like catalog of IP. I'm really not. There are some games that I see people talk about, and then I find out like, oh, that's a Square game. I didn't know. We'll see where Square ends up going though. So I appreciate the super chat, Severin. And Corey Landiga, saying it correctly now. Thank you for the super chat as well as the memberships, man. You're saying, oh, oh my god, of course. Now I feel like 3 times as bad, bro. Because you I didn't realize your super chat that you sent. I'm so sorry to keep you waiting. It was about me mispronouncing your your last name. You're saying, speaking of mispronunciation, Landiga is not Landega. Just saying, mate. I I do appreciate it, man. I always feel bad if I say somebody's name wrong. I mean, I feel especially bad because I've been saying your name a lot because you've been supporting the channel a lot. So it feels particularly bad, but I appreciate it, man. I'm sorry it took this long. I'm sorry it took up until a super chat for us to clear this up. So thank you for the support. Goes a long way, man. See somebody saying Near Automata. Am I saying that wrong? I don't even know if I'm saying that right. Is above 10 million copies sold now. Is that true? That's a Square game, isn't it? A lot of people told me I should play that. I never did. I never did play Nier. I'm not like I have no idea what that game like what type of gameplay is it? What type of gameplay is Nier? I see people asking, am I planning on playing Diablo 4? You know, I was checking out gameplay of Diablo. I'm not quite understanding what can somebody explain to me what the appeal of Diablo is? Because it doesn't look bad. I don't mean it like that. Like Diablo doesn't look bad. I'm just not sure. Is it I guess it's an RPG, right? It's like a fantasy RPG. Saying Diablo 4 is incredible. Addicting, upgrading, and leveling up. Okay. It's a dungeon crawler. Yeah, okay. An ARPG. Okay. Dungeon crawler hack and slash. You know what? You know, as silly as it sounds, one of the things that I think has truly always turned me off to a game like Diablo, it really is the camera angle. And I know that's unfair. I know that's unfair. Because I'm not saying that, oh, the game, I wouldn't enjoy the game because of the camera angle, but I can't help but be honest in that, like, as soon as I see it, like, the look of the game, just like where the camera is and the kind of zoomed out look, it doesn't, like, it doesn't appeal to me visually. So I think that's always what has held me back from trying out a game like Diablo. But I did watch gameplay, and I mean, look, the reason why I'm not going out and buying a game like Diablo 4 right now, it's simple. It's simply because we're too close to Final Fantasy. And for me, like a game like Final Fantasy, I don't plan on really playing anything else while I'm playing that. I just want to only focus on Final Fantasy. Now, we still are like 19 days away, but I just don't want to have that thing happen where it's like if I buy a new game now and then I get sucked into it, and then by the time Final Fantasy comes out, I'm like, I have to make a decision. Am I gonna make Final Fantasy 16 wait now? Or am I gonna cut this game off early, even though I'm loving it, because I'm gonna die? You know what I'm saying? Like, I know that's such a strange thing for some people, but for me, it's just I'd rather just make sure that my plate is clear right now with pretty much nothing to play. I mean, nothing it's super engaging. So that way, once 16 drops, and you know what I'm actually trying to do as well. I have been playing, like I said, Star Wars Jedi Survivor as well. I don't feel really stressed out about that game because I very much see myself completing Star Wars Jedi Survivor before Final Fantasy 16 launches. But I don't necessarily know if I'm going to try to go for the platinum or not. So yeah, and I see people asking about Street Fighter 6. I've heard very good things about Street Fighter 6. Not I know I'm sounding very picky right now, and I know how it comes off, and I don't mean to be that way, but I'm just being honest. Dude, I can't so it's worth noting I've never been a Street Fighter player. Okay, I'm a Mortal Kombat player, I'm a Tekken player. Never got into Street Fighter. Never had any problems with it. Want to make that clear. It's just one of those things where growing up, I just happened to never really play Street Fighter. My wife loves Street Fighter, on the other hand. I just need to know that, like, dude, what is going on with the character designs of Street Fighter 6? Like, am I the only one who thinks that these characters look like just their bodies look weird as hell, bro? Like, what is they look like? And I guess maybe that's part of the appeal, but it just looks so strange to me. It's horrifying. It is a little bit horrifying. Tekken's kind of going in that direction a little bit too. You know what always bothers me? I don't know. Maybe this is just because I'm a kind of a fitness person a little bit. I hate when characters look like everybody's on steroids. Not just a little bit of steroids, but like copious amounts of everything. Like all the steroids that a person can be on, they're on them. You know? It looks weird to me. Like even with Tekken 8, my favorite character in Tekken has always been Martial Law, and because I'm a big Bruce Lee fan, and when I saw the trailer, it was a little while ago, but they released a trailer for Martial Law in Tekken 8, which was an awesome trailer. Holy shit, it was so cool. But man, it's like they make him too buff. You know, like dude, you're too ripped. You're too ripped. Do you not like anime then? I'm not into anime. No, I again don't have any problems with it. Just never got into it. I think I've watched Cowboy Bebop, and I used to watch like certain animes that would come on like Toonami, but I never like got really attached to it. Street Fighter also has abnormally large hands slash feet. Yeah, dude, it's all weird. Mortal Kombat is more realistic. So no, Mortal Kombat is actually very unrealistic as well. Um, I will say though, like Mortal Kombat, it doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't have that overly exaggerated look for most of the characters. Now I see everybody in the chat recommending certain animes to me. So you must not be a Persona fan. Dude, that's a game that is on the it's on the list of games that a lot of people on the channel have been begging me to play. And maybe one day. Dude, speaking of fighting games, and we're going to continue to talk about Final Fantasy, we'll just go on this little side quest here. Speaking of fighting games, so that Mortal Kombat 1 trailer. I mean, was I the only person that was genuinely shocked that at the end of it, they're like, and we're just going to go crazy with the fatalities? Because it's obviously fatalities are very important to Mortal Kombat. It's part of its identity. They will always be there. I was just genuinely shocked that they were willing to, in their reveal trailer, be like, and we're going to start, like, at the end of this trailer, we're just going to show you the most absurd, disgusting, just because, like, imagine if you never played Mortal Kombat. Imagine if you've never played Mortal Kombat and you're just not really familiar and you watch that trailer. Dude, you were definitely shook by the end of it because I don't know. It was kind of funny. It was kind of funny. Dude, Mortal Kombat's fatalities are just, I don't even know how to describe them, you know? They're just so over the top, ridiculous, disgusting. It's just like I actually genuinely worry about who are these people working at NetherRealm coming up with this, dude. That is some horrifying, ghastly, like bodily mutilation that they're thinking of. And they, not only are they thinking of it, but they're coding it, bro. Am I new to Mortal Kombat? I guess I will admit, I think I might be new to Mortal Kombat reveal trailers. I've always bought the Mortal Kombat games, but I never like Mortal Kombat. I'm more of a casual lover of Mortal Kombat, where I am that type of person where I'll get the game when it comes out, but I'm not really paying much attention to it leading up to it. Like I just never, I'm not like watching the trailers. I'm not following the game. It's just like, oh, it's coming out. Oh yeah, I'll go buy it. It's Mortal Kombat, of course. So I don't know. Is that something they've always done? Have they always shown the fatalities in their reveal trailers? Maybe they have. Maybe I just wasn't aware. Ed Boon is a dark person. Yeah, he is. They have. Oh, okay. All right. Then I guess it was just me that was surprised. I'm shocked I didn't know that. Huh. I guess I don't know. I guess I was always under the impression that with a reveal trailer, that's not where they show the fatalities, you know, because it's a reveal trailer. It's got to be more, I guess like just like less appalling. That's so cool though, man. Yeah, Mortal Kombat 1 looks. You know what I really want to know about Mortal Kombat 1? I want to know what they're doing with the campaign, with the story mode, because that is like the biggest reason I've continued to support Mortal Kombat. Is because they do a great, and also the Injustice games, they do a great job with the single player experience in a fighting game. But I remember playing. Which Mortal Kombat was it? I remember I was playing a Mortal Kombat game, and I was playing as a character called Shujinko, I think his name was. And this was like a straight up like, I don't know, it was like I don't think it was like I don't know if it was like an RPG, but it was a full blown like single player story where you're walking around in the world in these different Mortal Kombat realms and stuff. And I remember playing, I think it was Mortal Kombat Armageddon. Mortal Kombat Armageddon had a pretty decent single player. Yeah, yeah, okay, Deception. Yeah, dude, these Mortal Kombat games were incredible. So I like really I want to see them. I want to see them do something really awesome with this single player campaign that they're gonna have for Mortal Kombat 1. Like, I'm not saying I'm expecting like a third person open world like RPG where you also do fights. I'm not saying I expect that, but it would be cool. What did you guys think of the custom fatalities in Mortal Kombat Armageddon? Wasn't there like some controversy around that? I was pretty young at the time when that game came out, but I thought that the custom fatalities were actually pretty cool. But I think a lot of people didn't like them. Saying meh. It's crazy to see Mortal Kombat still going so strong though, man. Good for them. What is your favorite Mortal Kombat character? I mean I hate to say it, but it I think it most of the time it's Scorpion, but I've actually gotten to a point where I don't like saying Scorpion's my favorite character because it genuinely feels too generic. Like, of course it's Scorpion. Um, I like Liu Kang a lot, and I don't know. I've always had a kind of a affinity for these Bruce Lee inspired characters in these fighting games. So I've always liked Liu Kang, but other characters I always thought Quan Chi was pretty cool. Yeah, Johnny Cage is badass. I always thought Quan Chi was a pretty cool character. Who else? I know that there's like some really obscure. I remember when I was playing Mortal Kombat Armageddon, one of the cooler things about that is, dude, they had like 70 characters or something like that. And there were just some of these most obscure characters that never heard of. Yeah, mocap. Yes, yes. Yeah, mocap's my favorite character, guys. He's my favorite character from Mortal Kombat. Saying noob. Yeah, noob's good. Ermac. I mean, I've always liked Sub Zero as well. I've always liked Scorpion more than Sub Zero. Shiva. Yeah, there's a that when you think about it, there are a ton of Mortal Kombat characters. There's a ton. Goro, Striker. Oh yeah, Striker. Shang Tsung. Kung Lao's pretty good too. Yeah, I'm excited, man. I'm very much looking forward to Mortal Kombat 1. I'm like it's interesting to me because I forgot about Mortal Kombat. Like I bought the last one, I played the story, I played it for a while, and then I just like put it down and I just moved on and then like I saw that everybody was getting so hyped for the next Mortal Kombat, and I'm like, oh yeah, Mortal Kombat, it's that time again, huh? Yeah, we're gonna get the gameplay reveal. I'm looking forward to it. Why are you not into Street Fighter? Again, man, no specific reason. I just never got into it. I don't know. I for some reason it just doesn't appeal to me. I don't know why. It just Street Fighter doesn't appeal to me. I wish I could tell you why. I have nothing against it. Yeah, and you got to give credit to Mortal Kombat 12 bringing in Arnold. Bringing in Arnold as the Terminator. All right, let me keep this going. Brad Beck. Hold on. Somebody had asked me if I got their super chat earlier, but now that I'm looking over, I don't think they ever did super chat. I don't know I don't know their name, or I forget their name off the top of my Dan saying, "Did you see Arnold's video today?" LOL. Wait, which video? Did Arnold upload a video? Did I miss this? What was the video, Dan? Robbie, you're saying MBG Final Fantasy Remake sold 5 million in 4 months and 14 million over the last 3 years. Is that true? I don't know if that's true or not. Dan, you're saying he did one with Chris Hemsworth for Netflix. Oh, I'm gonna have to check that out. I'll have to look into that. I don't know, man. That sounds hard to believe, Robbie. Final Fantasy 7 Remake sells 14 million in 3 years. Sergeant saying we have no data after August of 2020. Yeah, that's what a lot of people are saying. So I don't know that that's true. Brad Beck, you're saying, what would you like to see AI do for graphics and gameplay in the future based on your current understanding of what AI is capable of? Yeah, well, I mean, AI, dude, AI is a really interesting topic because we are clearly seeing major advances in AI technology to a kind of not it's not kind of like to a scary degree. AI is advancing at a rate that I think is concerning, but I try not to be too concerned because what am I going to do about it? I can't stop that. If that's what, if the future is AI, then the future is AI. When it comes to what would I like to see AI do for graphics and gameplay in the future? Hmm. Well, I mean, when it comes to graphics, I guess the simplest thing I can think of off the top of my head. And I don't know, you're saying based off of what I understand AI is capable of. I don't know if AI is capable of this, but it sounds like it could be at some point. I would like to see a day where AI is able to essentially polish graphics and take care of basically help development teams so that developers don't have to worry so much about spending all this time on polishing every nook and cranny of a game because like maybe that's an area where AI can take care of it for them and you would never know any different. Um, and so developers can just focus on the core of the game itself. Things that can basically help speed up production of massive AAA games, especially the bigger open world titles. That would be interesting. I don't know if that's already a thing. I don't know if we're far away from that being a thing. I do imagine that it's going to take a long time. I mean, I've seen. So you're saying modders put Chat GPT on Skyrim's NPCs, and it's amazing. There's a lot of potential there, lifelike conversations. Yeah, I mean, things like that, you can definitely see AI playing a role in the future. When you talk about now the one area that I'm unsure of is how AI could affect gameplay design. Now that's fascinating to me because I I don't know, man. Like you do have to wonder: is AI going to get to a point where a video game developer, a group of veteran video game developers come together? They are making a game and they have a core gameplay design and a core gameplay loop, and they think it's really good, and then they feed it, they test it out. They have, you know, they have players test it, and it's like, yeah, this is good. Here's some of your feedback. They feed that design and that they just feed the entire thing to an AI, and the AI spits out an even better version that feels even better to play. See, that's the whole thing, man. Is AI going to surpass human intellect, essentially? Human intelligence? Uh, to me, it seems like that's exactly where we're headed. That's, to me, it's obvious. Like we're talking about, an intelligence, artificial. Yes, it is artificial, but it's going to be able to, it can already do all of these things just much more quickly and much more efficiently than humans can. And it's creepy. It's kind of creepy. Saying AI can help reduce or even eliminate crunch. AI can reduce it. Yeah, and that's the whole thing. It's when it comes to, see, the only where AI gets scary, the conversation around AI where it gets scary, and just the fact that this is even a thing now, is, if I'm not mistaken, I think some of the most leading people in this field are beginning to question if, if some of these AI programs, if they're becoming like sentient, like, do they, like, is that happening? Are we on that path? Terminator timeline, Skynet? Yeah, we might be. We absolutely might be. It's kind of terrifying. It is. Man, that brings up some questions, man. Like, the day in AI, like, I mean, we see like androids and stuff. I think about, what's that one game, that David Cage game, Detroit Become Human? Are we on that path? Just the idea of an android with an artificial intelligence turning to a human being and questioning, like, what is my purpose? What made me? Who made me? Why am I here? Like, basically asking all the questions that we as human beings ask, except we will have an answer for them, which is, I don't know what that means. It's creepy stuff. It's creepy stuff. Like, this is stuff that we've seen in like science fiction for a long time. It's stuff we've read about, we've watched stuff, we see the different scenarios that people come up with. But what's actually genuinely kind of terrifying is we're kind of there now. Like, we're right on the cusp of, we're about to be there in real life. Like, actually, it's not a movie, it's not a show, it's not a book, it's not a video game. It's like, it's real life. That's to me, I don't know, that kind of terrifies me, because it's like something just doesn't seem right here. I think the idea is, I think that the whole idea is human beings believe collectively that we are too smart for that, right? Like, we're too smart to screw ourselves through robotics and through AI. But I don't know, man. I don't feel that way at all. I feel like, no, I think that's exactly what we'll do. I think that's absolutely 100%. If we pursue this path, we will screw ourselves, because we are arrogant, like, we are arrogant, and that is proof that we are arrogant. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm not gonna go any deeper than that. You're saying we are too smart? I hope we are. So let me put it to you this way. I think there are people, 100%, there are people who are smart enough to stop that from happening. But I also think, like, intelligence, unfortunately, on planet Earth doesn't always equal power. You see what I'm saying? Because the reality is, people who are in power are the ones that make decisions. And as we've seen time and time again, those with power does not, it's not equal to, you know, intelligence and intellect. It's just not. It's an uneven balance. So you got to hope that the people who are intelligent enough, the people who are smart enough to know like where this leads, low, yeah. You just got to hope that the people who are in charge and the people who have the power, that they're smart enough to be willing to listen to those who actually know what the fuck they're talking about. So, you're saying I would like Nier Automata? Yeah, maybe I would, I guess. I'll have to check that out eventually. I've heard really good things about it. Oh, Alex says worse than AI, just the great ones. We have seen nothing yet. Hype. Bro, I don't know where you're going with this, but I don't know. I'm just trying to be a relatively simple person here, you know? I'm just trying to live my life. I try not to follow too closely like the goings on in the world, because I try, like, I'm not saying I actively try to be ignorant to it, but I always have to ask myself, but like, what can I do about it? And that's why I choose to like limit what I expose myself to, because that's the harsh truth is I'm just a regular dude and I have minimal control over anything in this world. And when I'm exposed to things constantly that make me anxious and make me feel uncomfortable, because it's like, well, I don't think that doesn't seem good to me. And then the only answer I can give myself is, and you can do nothing about it but sit back and watch. You know, that's where it's like, well, okay. C. Theo says, just got here. Why is Square panicking? Meanwhile, MBG talking about having an existential crisis. I love it. Be prepared if the grid goes down for your family's sake. See, stuff like that, I got to be totally honest with you. I've seen, like, I get it. There are a lot of people who, like, you know, preppers, people who are always prepared for these like worst case scenarios. And I get that. I can't live my life that way, dude. I'm not saying to not be prepared for anything, because I don't think that's good either. But I can't live my life where it's like I gotta be ready for the like the absolute worst case scenario, bro. I'm gonna be totally real with you right now. If the worst case scenario happens, I'm dead, straight up. I'm not even gonna sit here and pretend. I'm not gonna sit here and act like I'm gonna be that fucking survivor. No, I'm not. I'm gonna die. And that's just what's gonna happen, you know? I'm not gonna try to die. I'm just gonna say, like, that's what's gonna happen. You know, like when you watch these, it's so funny when you watch these apocalyptic movies and shows, you always see it from the perspective of like the 1% of people who happen to survive. But most of us, like most people think to themselves, like, that's gonna be me. But in reality, it's like, no, you're probably like the 99% that also died. You know? So yeah, I'm not worried about it, man. I'm not worried about it. Come whatever may. MBG's wife just lost all faith in him. Hey, it doesn't mean I won't try. I'm not saying I won't try. I'm not just gonna literally lay down and die. I'm just saying I'm willing to accept that if I ended up surviving some kind of massive apocalyptic event, like me and my family, it would be by sheer luck. It would absolutely be by sheer luck. MBG, what I would say, if we learned anything from 2020, it's to garden. That's actually, yeah. My wife is really into gardening, and I'm trying to support her in that. You know, we actually just put together a garden bed for the first time this year, because she's been really inspired to do that. She's trying to grow a bunch of stuff, and I helped her put that together, and it's going pretty well actually. So I agree that, like, to me, that's one of those things where it's like, I'm not. Do I have any livestock? I actually don't. But again, that's something else. My wife is. I think she wants to get chickens at some point. Now, to me, that's so that's so foreign to me in a way, because like I've never. I don't know. I'm not a farmer. You know, like I've never gotten into that type of stuff. But the idea of having some chickens, yeah. I mean, maybe one day, sure. Free eggs, yeah. Organic, free eggs, can't go wrong. Yeah, you wait, like 2 years from now, I'm gonna have a full-blown farm. Muscle-bound gardener. When you said garden, your screensaver changed to a garden. Oh, did it? That's all. That's funny. That's awesome. All right. All right. I apologize. I have a couple more super chats here. I apologize for keeping you guys waiting. But that was an interesting question, Brad. Not one I was expecting, but definitely something that's relevant and topical. Salvazard06, you're saying, how is the performance for Jedi Survivor? So, as I said, I've been playing Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I'm not too happy with the performance mode. I've actually just decided to play it at 30 FPS. It's not ideal, and obviously I would prefer 60 FPS, but my eyes have, like, when I'm playing it, my eyes adjust to it. But yeah, the performance mode to me, it's just not in Jedi Survivor. It's just not up to snuff, man. It's just not. And Hellbound 1981 coming in once again, gifting another 5 memberships. Guys, let's get some W's in the chat for Hellbound 1981. Today it's been Hellbound 1981 and Corey gifting memberships, bringing us up to 31, and we have Rebel Warrior becoming a member as well. So that's 31 members on the day. Hellbound, thank you again, man. You're a little crazy on it there too. Keeping this community growing. Love to see it, man. Love to see it. Yeah, so it's basically like a 10 members gifted in total for Hellbound today. And let me see here. Yeah, so Salvazard06, just to keep it simple, man. The performance mode, it's not like unplayable in Star Wars Jedi Survivor, but it's just, to me, it's not ideal. I do notice enough imperfections with it that I just prefer, you know what, I'm just gonna play it at 30 FPS. That's fine, you know. So but yeah, Jedi Survivor in general, I'm enjoying it so far. I haven't gotten very far, but I'm taking my time with it, and it's good, man. Like, the presentation's on point. I like the way that they kind of catch you up, because I played the first game, but I kind of forgot everything that happened, but they kind of catch you up in the beginning, and the combat just feels really good, you know? And I have to admit, like, I kind of forgot how difficult. It's not like super difficult, but these Star Wars Jedi games, they're a little bit more difficult than you expect going in, and I underestimated it a little bit. I'm like, oh, okay, you know, I can't just like breeze through it. You know what I mean? You're saying no way the combat feels good at 30. It's one. So what I've noticed over the years is it depends. Like, if I boot up the game and I start playing at 60 FPS, and then I switch it to 30, yeah, it feels like garbage. I like can't readjust to it. However, if I boot up the game and I start it at 30, I don't know, man. I guess like your eyes, they adapt to it, and you're saying the motion blur helps at 30 frames. So actually, I did test this out, because I turned the motion blur off, and I normally always do this, and I normally always hate motion blur. And I think the reason being is because a lot of games I play at 60 FPS, I don't think motion blur helps at 60 FPS. However, I think you're correct. If you're playing a game at 30 and you turn motion blur on, I think it does help a little bit. I think it does, because I did notice, like, it feels a little bit smoother compared to when it's turned off at 30 frames. But I don't know. I don't know if motion blur is implemented differently for each game, but it doesn't feel you're saying motion blur hides games that use reconstruction techniques. That's why it's used. That makes sense. Not all motion blur is created equal. Maybe that's true. I mean, I feel like that sounds true. But yeah, that's how I've been playing it, and I have to admit that Like you can tell. You can tell. I'll be honest. Like you can tell when playing Star Wars Jedi Survivor at 30 FPS with motion blur on the PS5. This is the intended. This is the way the developer intended you to play this game. You could just tell. Um, I don't know why, but a lot of times with these games, like you can just get a feel when you're playing at 60 FPS versus when you're playing in the fidelity mode. You can usually get a feel and tell like how how is this game meant to be played? And yeah, more often than not, when it comes to these games that they have performance modes that are kind of shaky, not fully optimized, it's like, yeah, you just who would have thought? Who would have thought? But the 30 FPS mode for me, the fidelity mode, it looks better. Once my eyes get adjusted to that 30 FPS, turn the motion blur on, it's doable. It's doable. I can't say that I'm like sitting there being like, I can't play this. It's not that serious. It's not ideal, but oh, this is an interesting take. You're saying it pisses me off when people turn off motion blur in games that use reconstruction techniques. It's one of the reasons people were noticing issues with RE4 Remake. They didn't keep motion blur. Yeah, I never knew that. I always thought motion blur was more of like a cinematic type thing, but it's interesting that you're saying like it's actually used to. I mean, I always knew it was kind of used to hide certain imperfections, but I thought it was more of like a. I don't know. I guess I just never really thought that it could make that big of a difference, is what I'm trying to say. And I think Star Wars Jedi Survivor might be one of the first times I've noticed that it does make quite a difference, actually. So, hmm. Pushing polygons, you're saying, do you have a list of games that you want to check out but haven't, new and old? I don't have like a specific list. Like I don't have like a written list anywhere or like a go-to list, but I do kind of have certain games in my head that over time, like for example, just right off the bat, Persona is one that always kind of pops up in my mind because just I've seen so many people telling me like at some point in your life you got to try this game out, man. And it's one of those things where like I don't know if I'm ever going to, but for me, the way I work with games is, and this I know this is quite unfortunate. Yeah, like Sekiro, that's another one. A lot of people say, dude, you gotta play Sekiro, and I don't know what it is, man. I have this intense apprehension to move backward. Yeah, a lot of people saying I got to play a Plague Tale, Requiem. That's one I got to get to. Um, I don't know where that comes from. It's a type of stubbornness. I'm always like this, and I kind of have to fight myself. Where it's like I have this intense apprehension to move backwards in video games, and I don't know why that is. I think it's just because I don't know. I'm just wired to always look forward and always look at what's next, and I always feel like I'm struggling to even keep up with what's next. So the idea of even going back, but I don't like to be the type of person who's like, oh, I got a massive backlog, because it's like that implies that I'm thinking about actually actively going back and playing them. I will say like, oh yeah, there's this game I got to play and then that game, and I'll just, casually say, yeah, and maybe eventually I'll get to it. But the reality is like I almost never get to it, but I will say I should really try to fight myself more on this front. I should try to fight harder because every time I do decide to go back and be like, oh, you know what? I think I'll actually try this game now. I'm like always pleasantly surprised almost every time. And I think one of the most recent examples, not to keep bringing it up, but yeah, it was like Final Fantasy 7 Remake. I got to that much later than everybody else. And the reason why was because everybody was like, dude, you got to play it. And I was bored as hell looking for something to play. And that was like right there in front of me. And I'm like, okay. I was very nervous. I was going to hate it and be like, dude, I can't do this. But it ended up being like one of my favorite game experiences on the PlayStation in general. Or actually, I played it on the PS5. And it single handedly like got me into Final Fantasy. So it's one of these things where I won't lie to you guys and sit here and be like, I'm just gonna start working on my backlog and I'm always gonna go back and play these games. But what I can say is that there are games that I do feel like at some point in time in my life I should try to get into them, whether it's a new version of that game or an older one. And it will happen. It's very spontaneous. I never know when I'm going to get to a game. Um, and therefore I don't like saying that I'm going to get to a game, but it does happen. So hopefully that's a good enough answer, pushing polygons. Aaron Yogurt, you're saying Carl Urban is confirmed as Johnny Cage in Mortal Kombat 2. Yeah, I got to get on that, man. I got to watch. How was the Mortal Kombat movie? I've heard that it was pretty good. I didn't see the newest Mortal Kombat movie, but yeah, I did hear that they're making a sequel, and that's pretty cool, man. For me, Carl Urban, when I think of him, I automatically think of The Boys, and it's interesting because apparently Homelander is going to be a guest character in Mortal Kombat 1, which is very interesting to me. That's pretty awesome. I love The Boys. That's a great show. Looking forward to the next season. But yeah, Carl Urban, he's a good actor, man. So having him as Johnny Cage, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Somebody's saying it's serviceable. Somebody's saying it was horrible. All right, here's a question. Was it better or worse than the original Mortal Kombat movie from the 90s? Because that Mortal Kombat movie was amazing. Not the sequel, the first one. That is like one of the best video game movies ever. Somebody says worse. I see others saying better. Oh, it seems pretty split. Yeah, I'm going to have to go check this movie out at some point. Where can I watch it? Does anybody know off the top of their head where it's available? Because I've been looking for something new to watch. Like, I'm pretty sure it's on Max. Okay. Yeah, what's going on with Max now? It's not HBO Max anymore. It's just Max. What's going on over there? What are they doing? They're confusing the hell out of me. I can't keep up. They merged with Discovery. Yep, just Max. I don't know. All right, well, at least I know where to find it now if I decide I want to watch it. Disco Cobra 2013, thank you so much for the $20 super chat, man. You're saying, are you planning on playing Street Fighter 6 or Diablo 4 at some point? I've seen gameplay of both, and I'm hearing good things. Both games look pretty solid. Not sure what you're planning on doing. Jedi Survivor looks good too. So it's interesting, Disco Cobra, because I think it's obvious that you tuned into the stream after I talked about it. But to answer your super chat, Street Fighter 6, I've also been hearing very good things about, but unfortunately, I'm not planning on playing it. My explanation for this a little bit earlier was very simple. It's that I'm just not a Street Fighter player. I'm not. I don't have a desire to play it. I don't have anything against it. Not my cup of tea. Diablo 4, pretty much in the same boat. And it makes me feel kind of strange. I'm not going to lie, where it's like you get these two big AAA games that launch and everybody's talking about them. And I just kind of feel like the odd one out a little bit where I'm like, yeah, but I don't know that I'm not like, I'm like watching gameplay. I'm looking into these games. I'm like, I don't feel anything. Like, I don't feel like I want to jump on this game and play it right now. I don't know why, but that's just how I feel. What I can tell you, Disco Cobra, is I am playing Star Wars Jedi Survivor. And I mean, I don't know what type of gamer you are, what type of games you are attracted to most, but the thing I like about Star Wars Jedi Survivor is it's a single player narrative driven, very, has that very AAA presentation. I would recommend Jedi Survivor based off of what I played so far. The combat's really fun. Um, it's all there. It's the whole package. I would just say be careful because, as I've talked about, the performance mode is not ideal, in my opinion. So, Disco Cobra, if you're trying to I don't know if you're trying to figure out what you want to play, based off of these like 3 AAA games you just listed, but out of those 3, can I would recommend Jedi Survivor simply because that's what I'm playing right now, and I can confirm it's a pretty damn good game. And if you're really into like a lot of those Sony type games, like those narrative single player AAA experiences, Jedi Survivor basically is right up that alley. So Hopefully that answers your question, Disco Cobra, and thank you again for that $20 super chat. So, yeah, we talked about the Final Fantasy 16 rumor, and just to reiterate, because I do have two other things we're going to discuss regarding Final Fantasy, nothing major, but still things that are worth bringing up here. Just to summarize, there is a report coming from Imran Khan, and he is a somewhat reliable insider. He's been right about things, he's been wrong about things, so take it for what you will, but he's claiming that Square Enix on the inside is slightly panicking due to Final Fantasy 16 pre-orders. That's the report. Right now, we'll have to wait to see if we get any more information leading up to the launch of Final Fantasy 16. And if we do, I'll be sure to update you. But something else regarding Final Fantasy 16 over on the official Final Fantasy 7 Twitter account. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but it seems like they're doing some type of daily developer question and answer Q&A where every day on this account they're posting a question and a developer answer. And this is interesting. I find it interesting that they're doing this now because it's like we are just a couple of weeks away from the launch of Final Fantasy 16. So I mean, I would have thought that they would have waited to start talking about Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth until after the launch. But the first question, we did talk about this yesterday, but question, how is development progressing on Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth? And the producer of Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, that being Yoshinori Kitase, answers, development is progressing smoothly and according to plan. We are currently working on nailing down a release date for the game. Now, today, they posted another question, and it is, how will players journey through the world outside of Midgar in Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth? And the answer comes from the director of Rebirth, that being Naoki Hamaguchi. And he says, players will be able to journey across the wide and multifaceted world with a high degree of freedom, experiencing a myriad of different stories along the way. So this is kind of interesting because, I mean, it seems to imply that Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth is going to potentially be more of a wide linear uh game. Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be pretty massive. I mean, there were certainly areas in Final Fantasy 7 Remake to explore, but so my whole problem with Final Fantasy 7 Remake, and I talked about this a while ago, but I'll mention it again. Any area that opened up, the thing I didn't like about it is it felt like a freaking maze. I didn't like that aspect of it, where there were so many times where I just had to keep checking the map to get to certain goals because I feel like I'm literally going through a maze here, and I guess that's just kind of how it had to be developed because it's the first section of the story. So I am wondering, like, when they answer the question here and they say that you're going to have a high degree of freedom. Um, it's a multifaceted world with a high degree of freedom. It does make me wonder if we are going to see areas that are much more open than what we have seen thus far in Final Fantasy VII Remake. And I think that that would be pretty cool if they do something like that. It sounds to me a lot like what I'm expecting with Final Fantasy 16, where with Final Fantasy 16, it's basically confirmed to be a wide linear game. It's not completely open world, but there are going to be large areas that are pretty open that you can go explore. And yeah, I think that it would be interesting if they tried to incorporate something like that. You saying you play as the main character in different stages of his life also. Yeah, I did see that, and that's pretty cool too. I like that they're doing that. It's kind of unique in a way. I don't know if that's necessarily unique for Final Fantasy, but not a lot of games, I think, do something like that. At least it doesn't seem like it. Not that I played recently. But yeah, that I think this is cool what they're doing for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. They're starting to talk a little bit more. They're starting to. I mean, it's it's pretty subtle, And I like that. They're giving us like actually like really good information about the game. But they're being very subtle with it, where it's just like one question and answer a day for the development team. I think that's actually a really good idea. I don't know if they're going to do this literally every day. That seems like a bit much. That'd be kind of crazy. But maybe like multiple times throughout the week, they'll just have like these small little Twitter posts where they answer questions. And so I imagine that I imagine that we are not too far away from getting a new trailer for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now, I don't necessarily expect to get one in June, simply because June is the launch month of Final Fantasy 16. I don't think it's necessary to show a trailer for Rebirth in June, but I could see us maybe getting one in July or August, maybe even September if they want to wait that long. But it's the game is apparently progressing really well, and it could be another scenario where the game is done well in advance and they have a ton of time to polish. The game is scheduled for winter, so could be early next year. Could be early next year for all we know. But continuing to talk about Final Fantasy, have a report here. I don't know if it adds any new information, but a lot of people were asking me to talk about it again. So I'll just reiterate it. I think this is a good time to remind everybody or inform people who missed it. Final Fantasy IX Remake release date window, PS5 exclusivity reported. The leaker, who originally outed the existence of Persona 3 Remake, has hinted that Final Fantasy IX Remake may be exclusive to the PS5, and its release window is a ways away. Final Fantasy IX Remake has yet to be officially announced, but it was mentioned in the infamous NVIDIA GeForce Now leak, which has turned out to be accurate thus far. Reset era user I'm a Hero 2 claims to have seen Final Fantasy IX Remake and has said that it's definitely not coming to the Nintendo Switch, although they didn't mention Xbox or PC. I'm a Hero 2 says the game has Sony written all over it, hinting that it's a PlayStation 5 exclusive at launch. They then went on to claim that Final Fantasy IX Remake is at least 2 years away. So, take this with a grain of salt. I think it's safe to say that Final Fantasy IX Remake is real, because it was on the Nvidia leak. But when it comes to the whole exclusivity thing, I don't want to. I mean, look, it might be exclusive, it might not be. The last rumor we got was for Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake. That was rumored to be exclusive, and it turned out to not be. However, this is Square Enix we're talking about, and Sony, so I want to say that there's probably a much higher chance that it could be exclusive to PlayStation, just based off of the way Square and Sony have been partnered with Square Enix games or Final Fantasy games and exclusivity. So, yeah, pretty much everything that's pretty much the latest information we have regarding all things Final Fantasy, not just Final Fantasy 16, but yeah, I'm definitely going to be interested to see what happens with Final Fantasy 16 sales wise. I hope it does well. It would be, I think, like one of the worst case scenarios, and I don't think it's that bad, but it would be very interesting. Like, you do have to wonder, right? You do have to wonder, like, if Final Fantasy 16 doesn't sell as well as they were hoping, is this going to impact the partnership that Sony has with Square and exclusivity? I don't know. I do not know. Come on. Why do you guys gotta be? Hey, come on. Knock it off. I swear, man, my boss is so unpredictable. He'll be so chill, but then he'll start getting crazy out of nowhere. Um, Let me see here. Oh, I should mention this. This is kind of random, but I forgot to mention this when I talked about the PlayStation Days of Play sale. During the Days of Play sale, you can get 25% off a 12-month PlayStation Plus membership and on offers and upgrades for PlayStation Plus over on the store. So definitely want to make sure everybody's aware of that because I'm sure you know people people are gonna be having to upgrade their not upgrade but renew their membership soon. Some people anyway. So now would be the time to do it. Checking the chat now. Andrews, you're saying you always re-up during Days of Play every year. It's smart. I probably should too. 25% off. I mean, that's pretty good. That's a pretty decent savings. Claymores, you're saying you did too. Yeah, I was checking out all of the sales in the PlayStation Store that are there right now for Days of Play, and they're pretty decent, man. They're pretty decent. I think it's cool that Sony does these the annual Days of Play sale. They do it at like the same time every year. When's Sony gonna start handing out more free stuff though? You remember back in 2020 when I guess because everybody was home, they're like, let's just start giving out free games and stuff. I'm like, yo, start doing that again. Let me see. You're saying nothing was hardly under 50. I was expecting deep discounts. Well, yeah. I mean, there are some games that are, but there's a lot of like I don't know. I've noticed that Sony's games in particular. I've noticed that Sony's games in particular, like they have been holding their price points for a much longer period of time. Like maybe they don't stay at 70 for like a year or two straight, but they seem to only drop down to like $50. Not all of them. Like I saw Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut was like $20, I think, which I mean, if you haven't played Ghost of Tsushima at all, that's an absolute steal, in my opinion. Like that's a steal. But yeah, you see a game like The Last of Us Part One. I know it's not a year old yet, but it's still at $50. And I'm like, well, it's pretty high. I think 50 still that's pretty high. I would have expected it to be at least like 40, at least. But I guess it's just kind of maybe it has to do with the Last of Us HBO, and they're just like, well, we're gonna try to keep the price higher. Magnum Gaming, you're saying, are these digital pre-orders or physical? I would imagine for Final Fantasy 16, people would like a physical copy. And that's why I do want to encourage everybody to be very careful when we go over reports like this. I mean, I'm here to report it and give you guys the information and give you my thoughts on it, but just keep in mind that none of this is verified. This is all like not even secondhand, but like third hand information from people that we don't even know that we can trust. And that's a great question. Are they just talking about digital or physical pre orders or both? I have no idea. I can tell you that for me, I'm getting a physical copy of Final Fantasy 16. So I man, I'm getting I really hope physical games don't go away anytime soon, man. We really need to start we need to petition. We need a petition to get Remedy to do a physical copy of Alan Wake 2 to send a message. No, but Final Fantasy 16, I do think quite a few people are going to buy it physically, but yeah, there's no denying that a lot of people are buying digitally now. For I'm not against anybody who buys digitally. I don't know. I just think it's crazy that that some not some, but at least we're beginning to see like now, I'm just getting nervous that we're going to start seeing AAA game publishers start to sell their games digitally only now, and completely forego doing a physical release. I won't lie. I'm not the type of person like Alan Wake 2. I'm probably still gonna play. I don't know that I feel strongly enough that I'm gonna like boycott the game and be like, even though this is a game I'm excited about, I'm not going to. I don't collect a ton of things, but games are one thing. And I'm not like a massive collector. I don't have like a massive collection, but I don't know. I like having physical copies of games. It is nostalgic, but it also I like the tangibility of it. Will there be a stream tomorrow, MBG? That's a great question. Um it's very difficult for me to say concretely right now that there will be a stream tomorrow. Uh, I told you guys that today I was planning on doing a members only stream, and I decided to push that back just a little bit. Who knows? Maybe the members only stream will come tomorrow, but I have obviously like a new format here and a new way of doing things. So there will be Sundays where there won't be a stream. Um, like I said, I retired the name Press X Podcast because there's no reason to do it anymore. Um, I know I know a lot of people are like, dude, don't get rid of the name. It's for the sake of clarity and simplification. I stream not every single day, but I stream 4 to 5 to 6 times a week. There is no reason for me to do 4 to 5 to 6 streams going over gaming news to then just randomly have a, a a stream titled Press X Podcast. And the first thing somebody will ask is, well, what's the difference between Press X Podcast and your normal streams? Great question. There is no difference. You see what I'm saying? So it might come back in the future if I can, if something changes, or if I need to have a different type of stream that's just very different. And so my goal now is to just remain as consistent as I can with content output. I got to admit, it's been somewhat difficult. Like, I'm sure people who watch videos have noticed, or who usually come to my channel for video content. I'm sure they've noticed it's, there's been uh, a bit of a lull and a downtick, I guess you could say, um on the video content. And the reason for that is because it's hard to keep up with it every day in the same way. You know what I mean? Like, when I'm doing streams, that's my focus, and I only have so much bandwidth. Just call it the MBG podcast. Yeah, well, the thing is I don't want to frame my streams as a show. Do you know why? Because if I frame my streams as a show, like if I give it a name, it implies and it sets an expectation that this is a very like structured, organized thing, and I don't like that. And I don't think many of you guys like that. I mean, we need some structure and some organization, but I think generally speaking, most people who regularly tune into my streams, they like the fact that you never know what you're going to get. It's very free flowing, it's very in the moment, and I do try to have obviously topics to discuss, but that's kind of what I like, and I think I produce some of my best content, maybe not all of my best content, some of my best content in that way. Um, and so yeah, it's just my goal right now is to realistically keep up the content output in the most logical way, in a way that makes the most sense. So there's streams and there's videos, and I've tried to do some shorts. I don't know if I'm going to continue to do shorts or not. They just don't seem to be working out very well. Maybe I will, but I'm trying to find a good balance, because you know what else makes it difficult as well. And this is just you're getting a little bit of insight into like the content creation side of things. Something that makes it difficult is when there are topics to discuss, right? Like, let's take today's topic, for example. there's a new report that says Square Enix is slightly panicking over Final Fantasy 16. You see it in my title, it's in my thumbnail, it's a live stream. If I choose to make like I could, and I might, we'll see if maybe I'll test it out. After the stream ends, I could then construct a short 4 to 5 minute video talking about the exact same topic, and just that's it. It's a 4 to 5 minute video, but the title would have to be the same, and the thumbnail would ultimately have to be the same. And the only thing that's different is that it's not, a 2.5 hour live stream talking. And I know people want that. It's just, it's difficult to manage to do that every day, especially when it's on multiple topics. And so, yeah, it's one of these things where you guys will probably notice throughout this month and in the coming months, as long as I continue to do this new format, you'll probably notice some things change here and there, and a little bit of experimentation, because I'm trying to just balance things out accordingly. But I won't lie to you. There's no reason to lie, because it's just, you guys can see it clearly in front of you. The big priority on the channel are live streams. And the reason for that is because the live streams have proven to be the most productive way to sustain and grow the channel. Videos still do well. It's just that I've talked to you guys about it before, and I don't want to go on and on. But for some reason, my video content and the type of videos I make, YouTube doesn't really, it doesn't mix very well with YouTube's algorithm. Like, I still get, in my opinion, decent views, but generally speaking, YouTube doesn't really pick up my videos and put them out there in a significant way, and it has truly hurt my channel for a long time. And so they still play an important role, and they will still exist. I just want to find a more balanced and effective way of distributing content, and not necessarily neglecting anything. So, yeah, just a little bit of insight there, I guess. I don't, because, yeah, I mean, the question was, am I going to stream tomorrow? I know a lot of people are expecting it's Sunday. Of course, MBG is going to stream, but as you can see, like, the schedule has changed. So I don't know. If I do not stream tomorrow, the reason for it will be very simple. It will be because I don't have any topics to discuss with you guys today. There's nothing relevant in the realm of gaming news and info and updates to discuss with you. Could I do a random stream talking about whatever? Maybe. Could I do a members only stream? Maybe that would be a good time to do it. I do owe you guys a members only stream, though, that's for sure. So that might end up happening. MBG, are you ready for foam party? Shamel 2014, thank you for the super chats. You're saying, a bit random, but with the Android backbone controller, what sense does it make for Sony to basically make a device that serves the same purpose? I don't get it. It's a bit random with the Android backbone controller. What sense does it make? Oh, so Shamel, I don't know if that's a glitch on my end. I have two $5 super chats from you, but they both say the same thing. So I don't know if you accidentally posted that twice, but either way, I appreciate that, man. It's basically a $10 super chat. I've been thinking about this. I've been trying to wrap my head around why Sony feels the need to put a device like this out. And I can't quite figure it out. Like, there's the only thing that makes any sense to me is this. I think Sony's mentality for something like Project Q is, it doesn't matter how much sense it makes. It doesn't matter whether or not it's actually needed. It doesn't matter how useful it may or may not be. It is a new handheld device that we know, like, a certain amount of PlayStation players will buy it just for that reason alone. And I can promise you that this is going to be one of those devices that's low volume, high profit margin for Sony. That's what I'm fully like when I look at Project Q and I especially look at the reaction to it, I can't, unless Sony was just completely off the mark. I mean, they would have to be very out of touch to think that this is a highly desired product. It's not. It is not a highly desired product at all. A lot of people, when I say high profit, I'm saying high profit margin, as in like, a lot of people are saying this thing has to be cheap in order for Sony to sell a lot. Like, dude, I don't think that's their mentality with it. Like, knowing Sony, this thing's probably going to be way more expensive than anybody expected. And it'll just turn into a situation where even if like 100,000 people, which that's I think that's a lot for a device like this, but it 50,000 to 100,000 people buy this device, because that's the thing, man. We have to understand that Jim Ryan is a penny pincher, right? Like, for Jim Ryan, the way he runs the PlayStation brand, it really is about like, are there any areas where we could just scrape in some more extra money? Because every dollar counts, I guess, for Jim Ryan's PlayStation's bottom line. So I just anticipate that because I'm really trying to sit here and think like, well, here's another one. So you mentioned the Android backbone controller that exists. So why are they doing it? It could just come down to maybe this is a product where Sony doesn't just want third party offerings. Like, okay, I got another one for you. Sony may have access to data that indicates to them there's a big enough market for this that it's worth their while. So Sony has been selling, they've been partnered with Backbone and this, to sell this for phones. They may have noticed that, oh, like enough people are buying this Backbone product, at a premium price, which is about, $100 I'd say is a pretty premium price for something like the Backbone. And they're, it's selling well enough that we could develop something similar. It'll be a little bit more expensive because it's not just going to hold your phone. It comes with a tablet, a screen. Maybe enough people will buy it and we can make, we could just make some money on it. What is my point? My point is that if you're ever questioning why does this product exist? Why did Sony make this product? Why are they selling it? You can always count on money is why. They believe they will make money off of it. I'm just trying to explain that the money they make off of a product like Project Q doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to make the money off of we sold millions of units and we made a bunch of money. No, it might be we've sold a very small amount of units, but we made a good chunk of change off the people who bought it. And make no mistake, there will be people who buy Project Q. I'm not going to judge anybody who does. I mean, it's fine. There are going to be people who just think it's pretty cool and they're going to buy it. Could the product completely fail? Yeah, the product could be a colossal failure, dude. Like, it could sell nothing. And they're just like, just cancel it. That could happen. And we'll see. We'll see. My whole thing with Project Q, it's simple. I wouldn't ever see myself using it. Like if I ever bought something like Project Q, it would actually be to just collect and have, and just like, here's a thing that Sony released and I have it. That's it. And maybe I'd try it like once or twice, but I don't see myself doing it. You're saying how much do I think the earbuds will cost? I mean, I don't know I don't know how much are premium earbuds now. I haven't bought any in a long time. Like, what's the average price for like a premium? 150. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I like my gut was telling me like I think it's gonna be like 150 bucks. At least 200. Ooh, maybe it could be more than 200 would be a lot, dude. That would be crazy. I'd still buy it because I really like those earbuds. Like I love that Sony finally did something like this for PlayStation. And I know, I've seen people respond where like, imagine paying a premium price. Like, yeah, dude, I think it's cool and I'm gonna buy it. Unless it's like ridiculous. Like if they're like 300 bucks, I'd be like, yeah, I'm good, man. 200's a lot. Yeah, 200 bucks. I would expect like these have to be some of the best sounding earbuds I've ever heard. But I will admit, Sony apparently they're really good with their wireless earbud technology. So I would expect it to be premium. Think it's 169. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. I've been dying for something like this from Sony. It's specifically for the PS5, that is. Subtext, you're saying, did you see that Final Fantasy VII's official account has tweeted dev updates 2 days in a row? If they do 7 total, the last will be on the day of Summer Game Fest. Ooh, that's interesting. So yeah, we did just talk about that. I have noticed this. I didn't realize that though. If they do 7 in a row, the last day will be on Summer Game Fest. That's very interesting. Maybe that is exact. Because I was thinking, like, are they going to do this literally every day going forward? Or is this just going to be like a week-long thing? Are they going to do it for 2 weeks? But now, and I was even wondering, like, why are they doing it now when we're very close to Final Fantasy 16? Maybe maybe a new Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth trailer could show up at Summer Game Fest. I'm not expecting it. I'm expecting to see Final Fantasy 16 again at Summer Game Fest with hopefully a demo drop, maybe. But that would be quite the surprise, wouldn't it? What do you guys think? Do you think we're going to get a Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth trailer at Summer Game Fest? Undercutting Final Fantasy 16. Classic Square Enix genius move. Well, they could have. I mean, look, I'm not saying I'm expecting this. I think this sounds like too much. But they could do like a double whammy, I guess, where it's like, hey, here's the Final Fantasy 16 demo trailer, and we're dropping it now. And then here's a new trailer for Rebirth. They could do that. I'm not saying I expect it, but it is a possibility. Can you use the PS5 earbuds for stuff other than gaming? I would hope so. New Soul 9, you're saying, MBG, I recommend you watch the latest Final Fantasy movies and shows, especially Final Fantasy Compared. Yeah, you're not the first person to suggest this. I might see. I don't know. That's where I kind of like. I'm into Final Fantasy and I'm excited, but I don't know if I'm like that into it. Like, am I gonna start watching shows about it? Maybe. Well, I guess the only question I have at that point is if I were to decide to do that, where would I go to watch it? Where would the best place to go? The best place for Final Fantasy movies and shows. Blu-ray. Oh yeah, I guess I didn't think about that. Yeah, I guess I could just buy them physically. Yeah, I'll think about it, man. I want to say the chances of me doing that are low. Rushdom, you're saying don't do it. The shows and movies are hot garbage. I mean, I've heard mixed things. I don't know. I don't know. I will have to think about it because I don't watch too many things in general. And honestly, like I am at a point where when I go to watch TV or movies or anything, I don't know. I don't actively avoid video game stuff. It's just not it's just not the first thing that comes to mind. They already said you can use the earbuds with normal Bluetooth devices. Okay, yeah. See, that tells me it's going to be a premium price. That would be so stupid if it was like proprietary and you can only use it on PS5. That would be very dumb. I probably wouldn't buy them at that point. Don't watch Final Fantasy VII Advent Children unless you complete the PS1 original game. Sewell, just saying, play Crisis Core before it's too late. Man, I feel like it's already too late. It's already too late, isn't it? I have to be honest. The reason why I didn't want to play Crisis Core is because it was a it's a PSP remake, and I'm just like, well, I don't know, man. The thing that made Final Fantasy VII Remake so awesome was the fact that it was from the complete ground up remake, Hold on, we have another Final Fantasy leak here that has come out. Let me read this real quick. A new Final Fantasy Tactics remaster rumor / leak direct from Yasumi Matsuno. Somebody on Twitter says, many fans of Final Fantasy Tactics are looking forward to the rumored remaster. I will be very excited when it is announced. And then Yasumi Matsuno, I'm not sure who this person is. I'm assuming that they are involved with it. They say, if we remaster it, what do you think about whether it is better to weaken the Thunder God, Sid, I guess his name is, who was accused of destroying the balance? So, I mean, people are interpreting this as like this is a direct tease, I guess, that like an acknowledgement of, wait, so it is going to get a remaster. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not familiar with Final Fantasy Tactics. I know a lot of people love it though. That I do know. Yeah, and I think so. Yeah, that just came out, and I think that's pretty much it. That is it for everything Final Fantasy. Uh, oh my God, my son is out there screaming. He's like, "No more Final Fantasy!" Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to Summer Game Fest. But I'm trying to keep my expectations low if I'm being honest. The thing I'm most looking forward to when it comes to Summer Game Fest is hanging out with you guys and just watching a show together. I, I mean, a part of me wants to get a little bit excited because you say, remember last year's show? I do, and that's why I'm like, you know what? I'm keeping it low, man. I'm keeping my expectations very low. But what I will say is, there going to be a cosplay for Summer Game Fest? Definitely not. No, definitely not. Um, the thing that I want to say, it gives me a little bit of hope. It's the fact that it's incredibly likely Hideo Kojima and Kojima Productions will be at Summer Game Fest. And if Kojima's there, first off, I will be interested in anything he brings to show, but there is a somewhat, I'd say a 50-50 chance if Kojima shows up, he'll show up with Death Stranding 2. I don't know that I'm expecting it. I fully anticipate getting nothing. I want to make that clear. Now, I would say maybe he'll show up with his game for Xbox, but with the Xbox showcase happening just a couple days after Summer Game Fest, I don't. Schick Hydrobot cosplay or bust. Oh my god, I remember that, dude. That was funny. Like I said, my only expectation for Summer Game Fest, it's a very simple one. It's if I can walk away from that show just seeing one thing that gets me genuinely excited and pumped, then the show was a success. It doesn't matter what that thing is. That's all I'm looking for. It doesn't have to be a PlayStation specific thing, just one thing. That's my only expectation, because the only thing I don't want to happen is for me to tune into Summer Game Fest and walk away being like, that was horrible and I didn't see literally anything that interested me. That would be the worst. So yeah, I want it to be good. You know, who doesn't want these shows to be good? The Bill Clinton kid's gonna show up again, dude. You know what's funny? I imagine that. Yeah, I imagine that Jeff has upped the security this time. You know he's sweating. You know Jeff Keighley's sweating about that, and I don't blame him. I would be too. After what happened at the Game Awards, I would be so scared. I'd be like, he's gonna do it. Like everywhere he's like looking around and because it's gonna be live again. He's gonna be like imagining him. He's gonna imagine he's seeing him in the corner hiding and in the crowd with people. We're gonna watch Jeff Keighley come undone in real time, bro. That's what's gonna happen live at the event. You know, I think it would also be pretty funny if at the Game Awards this year in December, if Jeff actually invites the guy, like come to the show, be a presenter. No way. That was crazy. You know what's interesting is I think that dude, I mean obviously the kid who did that, I don't know what is his name, like I think that his name is like Matan or something, I don't know. I think he actually got kind of famous though. I think he's like an internet personality now. And his Matan Evans, yeah. He's like an internet personality now. He has he has a character he plays. MBG, did you see Jeff Keighley's interview about Summer Game Fest on the Friends Per Second podcast with Skill Up? So I saw it pop up. I didn't actually watch it though. Did he reveal anything important or interesting? I didn't actually click on it. Yeah, I've noticed that Jeff. Yeah, he's doing the rounds. He's doing some podcast interviews. 10 books. Name 10 books. Yeah, I saw that clip. That was funny, dude. Let me guess. He overhyped the show again. I don't know. He may be Hassan's kid. Oh my god. he's carrying the torch, man. I saw that. You're saying Jeff Keighley was on David Jaffe's live stream and he didn't look very happy. Dude, I saw a clip where, yeah, David Jaffe was asking questions that you could tell Jeff was like, no, I can't. Why are you asking me? You know what I mean? Like, you could just see the look on his face where it's like, why are you asking me this, dude? Like, I can't answer these questions. It was so awkward, man. It was like painfully awkward. And it's no offense to David Jaffe. I don't know. It's just, that's kind of, I don't know. I don't watch David Jaffe. I see him sometimes, but that's just who he is. You know what I mean? Like he's not gonna throw you softballs, I guess is the, he's not just gonna lob them up in the air for you. And I think for somebody like Jeff Keighley, where it's like he's signed God knows how many NDAs, you know, he knows so many things. He could leak anything at any moment. But yeah. Well, guys, I think with that being said, though, we're about to hit the 2.5 hour mark, and I have covered pretty much everything that I wanted to cover in the stream and talk about this topic with you today. I don't have anything else to add to it, and I don't want to just artificially extend the stream, obviously. So I think this would be a good end point. So before I end, I just want to once again thank you guys. A huge shout out to everybody who has donated a super chat and gifted memberships or became a member. We hit 31 members today, which is very good. We crushed the goal again. Love to see it. Shout out to Corey Landiga, as well as Hellbound, among others. And again, thank you guys for the super chats, keeping the conversation interesting and relevant. Am I going to be here tomorrow? I'm not 100% sure on that. Just be on the lookout. And a huge shout out to Devil Shooter for constantly doing the timestamps. Thank you so much, Devil Shooter. Really appreciate all the effort you're putting in. People are finding them very useful, and they're helping me out as well. So, yeah, that does it, guys. The only other thing I'm going to ask you before you head out, just hit that like button. And yeah, be on the lookout for the next stream and the next video. But until the next time, guys,